Hello and welcome to Berry Aftercare. Today we're going to continue on the same thread that we've been talking about for several weeks now. We're going to switch gears from talking about, you know, the things that happened in our childhood that have affected us negatively to what does it look like to be a healthy adult and how does a healthy adult behave? How those two things are directly connected goes like this. When we have an unhealthy childhood, when things happen to us as children, it affects our self esteem. And as children's self esteem is damaged or the good stuff in our cups spills out, and we are filled with shame or lack of self worth, then our behavior becomes protective. We protect ourselves. We don't want to feel insignificant. We don't want to be hurt. We don't want to feel shame. We don't want to feel embarrassed. We don't want to sometimes we don't feel anything. So we develop protective mechanisms to, protect our self-esteem, to keep us sort of safe. It's like an onion. If you picture an onion and you imagine the very center of that onion looking like a little heart, and that little heart at the very center of the onion kind of represents a full, happy, healthy human being. Well, as adults, as life happens to us as we go along, things happen. And when unhealthy or unpleasant or abusive or neglectful or shameful or being bullied or being picked on or criticized, as those things happen over our lifetimes, we put on an extra layer of protection. And so when people go to therapy, they talk about it like, shedding an onion, peeling the onion. You have to peel layers. You can't just go completely vulnerable, but you can start with what's going on now, talk about that, and then as you feel a little safer, then you go to a little bit deeper level with the therapist or with your friend you're talking about life with or whomever. And as you become more and more comfortable talking about the things at each deeper level, you peel those levels off until your very most wonderful, authentic self is free to live in this world because our healthy, authentic selves know how to set boundaries. We know how to communicate in healthy ways. And we've been talking about boundaries and communication skills. Well, as we put on layers of protection in our lives, we we lose the ability to set healthy boundaries because we want to protect ourselves and we do things like agree to things we don't want to do. We lose our healthy communication skills because we don't feel safe to share what's really going on with our thoughts or our feelings. And so we learn passive aggressive behavior or we learn aggressive communication skills. So all of those healthy skills have to be relearned as an adult, and we have to set aside whatever unhealthy coping skills we've developed along the way, whether that be overeating, being emotional eating, being drinking too much, shopping too much, spending too much time on social media, whatever it happens to be. Unhealthy communication skills, not setting boundaries, yelling at your children all the time. Of course, you're going to do that once in a while. What parent doesn't? But if it's a habit, or if you're very critical of others, or if you just have an unhealthy way of living, then we have to peel those layers. So we're going to talk about what a healthy adult is this week. And I'm going to do this first half of this topic right here, right now on this video and on this podcast. The second part will be, of course, only for those who are participants of Berry Aftercare. If you'd like to be part of Berry Aftercare, check it out at www.berryaftercare.com. Lots of good stuff there. But let's get on with today's talk. And I want to tell you what research says we need as children to become healthy adults who are capable of having healthy relationships. Now, this research may have had in mind healthy relationships with other people, but I'm saying in order to have healthy relationships with other people, with ourselves, and with food, then we need to be a healthy adult. So the last several podcasts and videos have been talking about things that affect our being healthy adults by things that happened as children. So I'm going to just do a quick review of these characteristics that research says are required for people to develop into healthy adults who are capable of having healthy relationships with other people. And then I'm going to go on to say that translates to having a healthy relationship with self and with food too. So, the things that these researchers say we need as children, not just a little bit, but they say we need these things in heavy, heavy doses over a long period of time. So when I read these things, I want you to think, did I have these things as a child? In heavy doses over a long period of time. So the majority of your childhood, the first one is security. Did you feel that you had security? And I'm going to suggest that maybe it was physical security. Did you feel like your home was stable, like you were going to have a place to go to? In addition to the physical security, did you feel emotionally secure in your home? I know that I felt physical safety and security in my home, but I didn't feel emotional security. It was a lot of chaos and arguing and fighting in my home. So think about that for yourself. The next quality is encouragement. Were you encouraged a lot? Did you receive a lot of encouragement for most of your childhood? And what about respect? Did you have a parent who talked to the children like, disrespectfully or unkindly or critically? Or were you asked to please set the table? Or would you mind helping me with this? And thank you for your hard work. Were you respected? Did you experience a feeling of being accepted for who you were, not in comparison to your siblings or your cousins or the other kids in class? Were you accepted for the interests that you had, not the ones your parents may have had for you? Those sorts of things. The next quality is comfort. Were you comforted? Were you given, you know, and there's one that's affirmation or affection too. Were you comforted with words or hugs or snuggling or being tucked into bed? Did you have those sorts of things in heavy doses over long periods of time? The next couple are support. Were you supported? If you wanted to try all the different sports or all the different art classes or all of the different speech or chess or math club or whatever your interests were you supported in trying these things? Were you given attention? Were there too many people in the home to be given attention or individual attention? Were your parents' attention focused elsewhere, like on each other, their hatred or absolute obsession with each other, which could have been loving? Was their attention focused on work as opposed to their children and their families? Were you shown appreciation, not for just what you did, but for who you were? Like, I'm so grateful you're my kid. I'm so appreciative that, I have you as my son or my daughter. And were you given approval? So, research is telling us that if we didn't get these things in heavy doses over a long period of time, we're going to have a hard time with our adult relationships. And I believe that to be 100% true. Now, the opposite of these things would be A, not having them in heavy doses over a long period of time, but also experiencing what we talked about in previous podcasts, which was any kind of neglect or abuse or bullying or shaming or criticism on a constant basis. So that just tells you if you were set up to be able to know how to have healthy communication skills, healthy boundaries, and behave like a healthy adult. So now I'm going to read you some information from an article that I found online called Embrace Your Inner Adult. And it's by a person named Barry Davenport, who lists some of the characteristics of an emotionally mature adult. So as I go through this list fairly quickly, I want you to think, did the adults in my life when I was a child demonstrate these kinds of behaviors? And in my life as an adult, do I behave in emotionally mature ways. All right, here we go. So, the first one on this list is emotionally healthy adults accept criticism gracefully. Ouch. They are able to be appreciative for the opportunity to improve. So, if somebody criticizes you, let's say it's somebody outside your family, they're not related to you. How do you accept criticism? If it's at work, or if you're having a job performance review, or you're in a class and the teacher's giving you feedback, how do you accept criticism? Are you immediately defensive? A lot of us are. And that's not a problem. It's not a problem to have initial reactive instincts. It's how you behave. I might get really ticked off on the inside, which is a defense mechanism, right? But what do I say to that person? Well, how do you know? Or you have no right to talk to me like that. Or why are you even sharing me? I didn't ask your opinion. So, what's your response if you are criticized? So, when people give you feedback, do you get defensive? That's okay. It's not about how we feel, it's about how we behave here. Do we behave like a healthy adult? If we're able to behave like a healthy adult, then we at least are able to behave like a healthy adult. We don't let our internal instinct, which may come from, I want to protect myself, to, you know, come out our mouth all the time or be passive aggressive about it. So if you get criticism, now if it's from your family members, it's even more difficult to behave like a healthy adult and accept the criticism. And what that would look like is somebody criticizes you, and instead of barking back at them or lashing out at them or denying vehemently what they're saying, is just to kind of pause, maybe shake your head a little bit, think about it for a minute, go, I will think about that. I'm going to have to give that some thought. Thanks for the input. Oh, that's not easy to do, right? But one of the characteristics of an emotionally healthy adult is accepting criticism or feedback instead of being really uber defensive or shooting back. Well, you do it too, that kind of thing. All right, another quality of an emotionally healthy adult is do not indulge in self pity. Emotionally healthy adults do not indulge in self pity. Now, again, from time to time, most of us have a little pity party, right? And that's normal. It's okay. It depends what you do with that. If you go around telling everybody, woe is me, woe is me, woe is me, well, you're going to push people away for one thing, which is why these are, healthy adults don't do that, right? Now, you may decide to throw a little pity party, but what I would suggest is that you set the timer and give yourself 10 minutes to really wallow in your misery. But after that, say, you know what? I'm not going to sit here and pity. So if people have given you the feedback, you really seem to engage in self-pity, or, why are you feeling so sorry for yourself? You might want to take that feedback and go, maybe there's some truth to that. If a lot of different people give you the same kind of feedback, well, maybe there's something to it. So even though you may sometimes feel like, woe is me, why is everybody always picking on me? That song, why is everybody always picking on me? Well, take some time and go, okay, what's going on here? Is there a reason for me to feel sorry for myself? How much of this did I bring upon myself, if any? What can I do to not wallow in self-pity? Because that's not healthy adult behavior. And it pushes people away. So we're talking about having healthy relationships. So if you get into self-pity mode, maybe you're going to turn to food for emotional comfort, right? So that makes your relationship with food unhealthy, right? You use your pity party as an excuse to engage in emotional eating, right? Or if you get feedback, the one before that we talked about that you didn't like, you're criticized, maybe you run to food so you feel better temporarily, as opposed to doing what a healthy adult would do and say, even though I'm tempted to do what I've done in the past and turn to a bowl of ice cream or whatever it is, I'm going to sit with these feelings and sit with this information, or maybe call a friend and process through it. That would be a healthy emotional response to feeling criticized. Healthy emotional adults don't expect special consideration or feel entitled. So sometimes you go to the doctor's office and everybody's waiting and you're like pounding on the counter. Don't you know who I am? I'm busy. I've got. Do you feel entitled? Do you feel like you should be given special consideration? Well, emotionally healthy adults don't do that. They realize that everybody in the crowd has got a life and all of our lives are important. And if I have to stand in line like everybody else, then I have to stand in line like everybody else. Okay, so don't expect entitlement. Ooh, here's one. Emotionally healthy adults control their temper, but they do express their anger or their frustration in a healthy way. So this isn't saying healthy adults don't get angry. We get angry. All of us get angry, whether we're emotionally healthy or not. What do you do with your anger? Right? So it's not about not feeling sad or hurt or angry or defensive. What do you do when you feel that way? So if I'm angry, do I lash out at somebody else? Do I take it out on somebody else? Do I point the finger at somebody else? Those aren't healthy adult responses, right? So we talked about healthy communications, right? Last time. If I'm angry, it's okay to say, I'm really angry about what just happened because blah, 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 blah. When this happened, I felt angry because I would appreciate if. So when you screamed at me or raised your voice at me, I felt angry because I'd like to be talked to with respect. I would appreciate if we could have a discussion without raised voices. That would be an emotionally healthy adult response. Now, that's not easy, right? I'm a very intense person, and when I get angry, my voice gets louder. I have to work on that a lot, a lot, a lot. If you're angry and it's in a situation and, maybe you're at the doctor's office and you're not feeling entitled, but let's say you've waited like 2.5 hours and you're angry. So maybe you go up and say, I understand you're all busy and I know this isn't your fault because it's not the receptionist's fault, right? But I'm feeling really frustrated as I've been waiting 2.5 hours. Can you give me some indication of how long I'll be here or I need to reschedule? Instead of making a scene or being unkind to the receptionist. So do you behave in an emotionally healthy way? Now, this is how this affects our relationship with other people, but think about how we use food when we are upset or irritated or feel like we're having self-pity or we're feeling entitled. A lot of times people who have an emotional eating issue will turn to food to deal with those emotions. So it all goes together. An emotionally healthy person is not easily hurt or wounded by others. This is really, really a critical point because one of the things I see so often in life is people being like so wounded. Somebody says something to them and they're like, oh, how could you say that about me? I can't believe you would say that about me. So wounded, right? Whatever that person is saying, it's their opinion or it's about them or whatever. You have the choice to let that devastate you and be so wounded. Or you can go, you know what? I don't know where you're coming from with that. I'll think about it, see if what you're saying makes any sense for me. But you don't have to be, like pierced through the heart and so destroyed by what somebody says to you or about you. Whatever, you can't control other people. You've got to be okay with you. And it's like, well, I can't control what they think. So what? You know, there's a book called The Four Agreements, and one of them is don't take things so personally. So true. Quit taking things so personally. If you are a person who gets so wounded or you take things very personally, you might need to think, what is this about? Because it's not a healthy adult behavior. You may get your feelings hurt. Of course, we all do. But how deep is that wound, right? Do you sit in it for a few minutes and go, wow, I can't control what they think. Maybe that's how they think, and it does hurt my feelings, but I've got to be okay with me. You've got to decide, right? Don't be so wounded. It's a sign of not being too emotionally healthy as an adult. So, an emotionally healthy adult also accepts the responsibility of their own actions without making excuses or blaming others. So, let's talk about this in terms of your relationships with people, and then we'll flip to food, okay? If somebody comes to you and gives you feedback or gives you criticism or says something you don't like or something that hurts your feelings, or says, when you did this, it upset me, or you hurt my feelings when you said that, or whatever the feedback they're giving you is, do you immediately go, well, you do it too? So you're blaming them, or you're making excuses? Or do you say, well, I wouldn't have said this if you hadn't said that? We make excuses, we blame other people, we turn things around on other people. Not okay. If somebody comes to me and says, really, Connie, it really kind of sucked when you, um, you know, slammed the door or whatever. As a healthy emotional adult, it's my responsibility to go, you know what? I am sorry I slammed that door. That was really inappropriate. It was a passive aggressive way of showing anger. I am really sorry for what I did. And this happens every day in my life where I'll say something snarky, or I'll um, discredit, or discount something my husband says. It happens throughout my day, almost every day. But as a healthier adult than I used to be, I will now go back and say, you know what, that really sucked. That I was sarcastic when you said that. I'm really sorry, you didn't deserve that. So it doesn't mean we have to behave perfectly or get it right on the spot, because we're not going to do that. But going back and taking responsibility and saying, you know what? It doesn't matter what you said to me. I'm responsible for how I respond to you, and my response was inappropriate. I'm really sorry. And you know what? 10 times, you're going to get an apology from the other person too. Now, how does this transfer to food, right? If somebody says something and you blame them, or we make excuses with food. Well, I was stressed, so I ate. Stress is not an excuse to eat. Stress means I need to learn to deal with it in a healthy adult way. Being busy is not an excuse not to exercise. Being busy is not an excuse to drive through for every meal. As a healthy adult, we take responsibility. It's like, I'm really busy this week, I need to meal prep. Or I'm really busy this week, or I'm taking kids all over the place this week, I need to make sure I pack healthy foods. So accept responsibility. That's a sign of being an emotionally healthy adult. Ooh, here's a good one. Emotionally healthy adults have outgrown the all or nothing stage. Now, how this relates to a relationship with food should be clear to a lot of you, because you've probably done the all or nothing. I know I did back in the day when I was really struggling with food. I'm going to eat absolutely no sugar, or I'm going to eat sugar all the time. I'm going to go to the gym every single day of my life, and the first day I miss one, I'm done. I'm not doing it at all. All or nothing. Life isn't going to work that way. It's just not. So when I talk to people about the gotta do-ums, or the behaviors that result in weight loss and maintaining weight loss, and I have a list of like 10 of them, it's like, do most of these most days, not all of them perfectly, because we cannot live like that. So if you're doing all carbs or no carbs, and then you feel deprived and you go to, I'm going to eat anything I want whenever I want it, that's kind of an all or nothing kind of response. Not healthy, because emotionally healthy adults know, I'm not going to be able to do everything I need to do every single day. So if I can do it, you know, uh, tracking of my food 6 days and I miss one day, it's going to be okay. Or if I go to the gym 5 days and not seven, it's going to be okay. Or if I go on vacation and I don't go to the gym at all, but I walk while I'm outside, it's okay. I don't have to quit exercising if I miss a couple of days. So if you're that all or nothing kind of mentality, I'm black or white, if you describe yourself that way, you might want to rethink that because it's not something to really, brag about. It's a sign of an emotionally unhealthy adult because life isn't black or white in any scenario. All right. Um, here's one too. Emotionally healthy adults are glad when others enjoy success or good fortune, has outgrown envy or jealousy. This one's taken me a little time in my adult life, right? If I was doing something, let's say 15 years ago, if I applied to speak at a conference and somebody else I know got the invitation, it's not that I wasn't happy for them, but I was not happy that it was them and not me. Today, I have learned that there are so many opportunities. It doesn't matter if I'm not accepted for that one, it means I wasn't meant to be there. So, coming to terms with other people's success, other people's good fortune, whatever it may be. So, it's okay to go, yeah, I wish that was me. But not to be like, "Oh, why? Why not me?" Get into that whole jealous and envy thing. But to be truly happy for others in spite of, acknowledging like, "Oh, I wouldn't have minded having that gig, but I guess I wasn't supposed to be there." So acceptance is a huge thing for a healthy adult, right? Now, another, let me see how many more of these we've got. Okay, just three. So, a healthy, emotionally healthy adult is not a fault finder or complainer. Now, the Debbie Downers in your bunch, right? Somebody who's always going to find faults, or there's always something not right, or they could do it better, or why would they do it this way? And why would anybody think to do it that way? Chronic fault finders or complainers, not healthy adults. It's okay to say, you know, that's another way of doing it. It's not my way, but they must enjoy that, right? So acceptance, again, is really critical and not not being judgmental or uber critical, right? Healthy emotional adults are, oh, this is a tough one. Oh, this is going to get a lot of us. Is open-minded enough to listen thoughtfully to the opinions of others. I'm going to say two words and you're going to know what I mean, but I'm going to read this first. Again, a healthy, emotionally healthy adult, that's a little redundant, an emotionally healthy adult is open minded enough to listen thoughtfully to the opinions of others. Think politics, think religion. Are you the person who can be absolutely passionate about your beliefs but also be okay with other people being equally passionate about their beliefs? Or does everybody, by God, got to see it my way? Think about yourself. Think about the last election. Emotionally healthy adults say, this is my belief. I am really passionate about it. If you don't believe, or if you don't believe the way I do, it's okay. It's okay. Let me listen to your point of view. But if I'm going to fight about it and I'm going to try to bully you into believing the way I do, that's not healthy. Just saying. All right. And an emotionally healthy adult has a set of guiding principles, beliefs, or values that create the framework for their decisions and actions. Now, if you've been listening to the podcast for a long time or following my work for a long time, you'll know that I have what I call meaningful matters. It's like, what is meaningful to you? What is most meaningful to you in your life? whether it's in your family or your weight loss journey or your physical health or your job or your financial world or your spiritual world. What is most meaningful to you in each of those arenas? What matters the most to you in each of those arenas? That's what I call your meaningful matters. These are your values or your beliefs or your guiding principles. And these are really important because the decisions that we make, if they reflect those values, if they're, in line with those, then we're probably living a pretty healthy adult life. So if my goals, my guiding principles, my meaningful matters where weight loss surgery is concerned are to have improved health and an improved quality of life, then I make my decisions based on that value. If I don't work out, will that move me closer to having a healthier life, better health? No, it won't. So my actions need to match what I say is most important to me. That's a great one. So these are some characteristics of emotionally healthy adults. And again, they're from an article that you can find online called Embrace Your Inner Adult by Barry Davenport, Barrie. And they're characteristics of an emotionally mature adult. That's what we're trying to be. And anything from your past that has hurt you or shamed you, any shame we're still carrying with us as an adult is going to interfere with our being able to behave in those emotionally mature ways. Why? Because we want to protect ourselves. We don't want to feel certain things. We don't want to experience any kind of shame. So we deflect, we do whatever we have to do not to feel those things. That's not the healthiest thing. The healthiest thing is to say, I'm going to embrace how I feel. I'm going to work through things that are unresolved. And I'm going to become more and more and more a healthy, emotional adult as I go through my life. That way, I won't turn to food to make me feel better so much. And that's how it's all intertwined. So think about these things, review these characteristics of emotionally mature adults, and think about your typical responses in situations that maybe I used as an example. And if you're behaving less maturely, or if you can look at other people and go, oh my God, grow up, just know that all of us do it. It's a matter of putting effort into making those changes. And really, it's only by doing the deep dive into our emotional selves and our psyches and what causes us to engage in protective behaviors that we're going to be able to sort through those and clean them out. It's a journey. I encourage everybody to take that journey. And I realize for some people it seems easier not to. But if you want to have the fullest, happiest, most joyful experience of life on this planet, which you only get one, at least in this incarnation, if you believe in reincarnation, I don't know. It's not an issue in my world at this point because here I am right now as me. And I only get one run as me. And so, how I want to live my life is to be the healthiest person I can be, physically, emotionally, spiritually. So, learning about these things and learning about what prevents me from doing them effectively is a journey I want to take. I hope you'll join me. As always, remember it's your health, it's your responsibility this day and every day. And I will talk with you again later in the week when I do part 2 of being an emotionally healthy adult and how that is related to our physical health. All right, guys, make it a good one. See you soon.